says he does have some sensation in his chest. That indicates that his spinal cord was not severed in his riding accident.
The actor Heath Ledger was found dead today in an apartment here in New York City. He was just 28 years old. The Australian-born actor came to huge
We want to bring you some details on a breaking story out of Aurora, Colorado this morning. A very scary situation. A suburban Denver movie theater. Apparently there has been a mass shooting.
Zack Snyder and his family have received an outpouring of support following his public announcement that his daughter Autumn Snyder died by suicide in March 2020. Snyder shared a link on
the Batman actor.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. Today's dark and disturbing topic is all the strange and mysterious things that have happened to movies based on DC Comics. So I'm talking about mysterious deaths, murders, accidents, mass shootings, suicides, all kinds of crazy stuff surrounding people and events involved with these films. There seems to be a dark cloud that plagues DC movies to this very day. The string of bad luck started with George Reeves, who played Superman back in 1951 in the movie Superman and the Mole Man. Reeves was killed by a gunshot wound to the head in his upstairs bedroom at home between 1:30 and 2 o'clock a.m. on June 16, 1959. The circumstances surrounding his death are shrouded in mystery. This case honestly makes zero sense. Police arrived within 1 hour of the incident happening. The night of Reeves' death, the actor was at home with his fiancée, Lenore Lemon, along with writer Robert Kondo, who had been staying with them. Around 1 in the morning, they were joined by two of the neighbors. Reeves, who had already been asleep in bed, stomped downstairs and yelled at his guests over the loud noise. He stayed for a drink and went back to bed. As he went back upstairs, his fiancée strangely apparently began providing some morbid commentary. "He's going upstairs to shoot himself," she said to the other guests, who then heard a sound from upstairs. "See? He's opening the drawer to get the gun," Lemon said. Finally, a single shot rang out. She then exclaimed, "I told you, he shot himself." When questioned by the police about her bizarre comments, she said she was only joking. His death was ruled a suicide. Reeves' mother didn't believe this was true and that the conclusion to suicide was way too hasty. So she hired her own lawyer to investigate further. They got a second autopsy and found out that the police never even checked Reeves' fingers for residue to see if he pulled the trigger, and they didn't even count the number of bullets remaining in the gun. There were also bruises on Reeves' head and body, none of which were investigated. Reeves' mother's new lawyer strangely suddenly dropped the case and stopped investigating completely, almost as if he was threatened or scared off in some way. Most people don't seem to believe in the suicide theory. It does seem strange to randomly commit suicide when you have guests downstairs. Plus all the things the police ignored for some reason. Most people knowledgeable on this case consider it murder. It doesn't seem like we'll ever really find out what happened that night. But Reeves was having an affair with the wife of the infamous Eddie Mannix, a fixer at MGM during the golden age of the studio, when his job was to make stars' problems go away. Sounds pretty sketchy to me. Either Tony or Eddie are probably responsible for Reeves' death in some way. Either it's Tony trying to cover up her affair, or her husband finding out about it and taking care of it himself. Nonetheless, the fact that Reeves' fiancée was literally narrating exactly what was ruled as his death is incredibly creepy. On from one Superman to the next, Christopher Reeves played the Man of Steel in 4 movies from 1978 to 1987. He was a big fan of riding horses. He was in a jumping class, and as his horse approached the fence, he refused to jump. The horse may have swerved to avoid it, or he could have stopped suddenly, but either way, Reeves went head first off the horse and broke his neck when he landed. His hands got tangled up in the reins, which prevented him from protecting himself or breaking his fall. He became a paraplegic and was confined to a chair for the remainder of his life. He died just 10 years later at the age of 52. To add to the tragedy and bad luck, his widow, Dana Reeve, who was a non-smoker, died of lung cancer in 2006 at the age of just 44. Some people think there's a Superman curse since two of the first actors portraying the character suffered unfortunate, life-changing, or life-ending experiences. But at the same time, there have been multiple actors who have portrayed Superman who haven't had any negative or bad things happen to them. Yet.
I just did what I do best. I took your little plan and I turned it on itself. Look what I did to this city with a few drums of gas and a couple of bullets. You know what I noticed? Nobody panics when things go according to plan. Even if the plan is horrifying. If tomorrow I tell the press that like a gangbanger will get shot, or a truckload of soldiers will be blowing up, nobody panics. Because it's all part of the plan. But when I say that one little old mare will die, well, then everyone loses their minds.
People weren't happy when they first heard the news that Heath Ledger, of all people, was going to be playing the Joker in the Dark Knight movie, but he clearly proved everyone wrong with his legendary performance. Heath accidentally overdosed on prescription drugs on January 22, 2008. He's found dead in bed in his Manhattan flat by his housekeeper and masseuse at around 3 o'clock p.m. He'd taken 6 types of drugs, and the toxicology report states, "We have concluded that the manner of death is an accident resulting from the abuse of prescribed medications." The news was shocking. Such a young man, such a widely anticipated movie. An aura of darkness and mystique was cast around the film. Heath's performance certainly lived up to the hype. Some people argue that he had driven himself mad from pinning himself up alone in a hotel room writing dark diaries to himself, trying to prepare for his role as the sinister comic book villain. When Jack Nicholson was told about the news, he famously said, "I warned him."
Jack, any comments on Heath Ledger's death?
About what?
Heath Ledger, the actor, he died in New York.
Overdose. He died in New York. Yeah. I warned him.
Listen, Jack. This guy's sick up all his films, man.
Some people think he was talking about playing the Joker since he also played the Joker in the past, but he was probably referring to the prescription drugs. It's sad and unfortunate that his career definitely would have skyrocketed after this role, and it's sad that we couldn't see him in The Dark Knight Rises. He was posthumously awarded an Oscar for his role.
Good morning, Paul and Rob. I'm just pulling up on the scene here. There are just police cars everywhere, as you can imagine. I drove in from about 10 miles away, and police cars were streaming in from all over the place. Listening to reports of witnesses calling into local radio stations, we're hearing a lot that seemed to suggest that people were in the theater while the movie was going on, and that there was a lot of confusion when the gunfire first broke out. People actually thought that this was part of the movie. There were multiple theaters here that were showing the film, and there are reports that gunfire went from one theater to another, and that people were injured and hurt in the theater where shooting wasn't even going on.
On July 20th, 2012, a mass shooting occurred inside the Century 16 movie theater in Aurora, Colorado during the midnight screening for the film The Dark Knight Rises. Dressed in tactical gear and armed to the teeth, James Egan Holmes launched an all-out assault on excited moviegoers out to enjoy the evening watching their favorite superhero on the big screen. This sick individual methodically planned the killing of 12 people. He bought a ticket, entered the theater, and sat in the front row. About 20 minutes into the film, he left the theater through an emergency door. He propped the door open with a plastic tablecloth holder. He went to his car that was parked nearby and put on his gas mask, a load-bearing vest, ballistic helmet, bulletproof leggings, bullet-resistant throat protector, a groin protector, and tactical gloves. He was dressed in black. he retrieved his weapons: a 12-gauge Remington 870 Express Tactical Shotgun, a Smith & Wesson M&P 15, a semi-automatic rifle with 100-round drum magazine, and a Glock 22 40 caliber handgun. He was also listening to techno music through a set of headphones so he couldn't hear the audience's reaction. He began his assault by throwing 2 gas canisters, obscuring vision and irritating people's eyes. He fired a shotgun into the ceiling, then into the audience. He then fired his assault rifle into the audience, which eventually malfunctioned. After that, he took out his handgun and fired to the back of the room, then to the audience once again, almost as if to taunt them. One of the bullets went through the wall, hitting 3 people watching a completely different movie. Alarms were going off and people were trying to evacuate. There was some confusion about there possibly being a second shooter in the lobby, but that wasn't the case. Police arrived within 90 seconds and arrested James behind the cinema next to his car. He didn't resist and seemed to be in a disconnected daze. There were reports that he dyed his hair orange and claimed to be the Joker, but the police never confirmed this. During his trial, he did have reddish-orange hair, giving some believability to these rumors. Holmes was a fan of superheroes, including Batman. His apartment was even decorated with Batman paraphernalia. During his childhood, he was frightened of what he called nail ghosts that would hammer on the walls at night. He would also see shadows and flickers at the corner of his eyes, which would fight each other with firearms and other weapons. Holmes saw social worker Margaret Roth one time before she sent him to psychiatrist Lynn Fenton. Holmes was depressed and obsessed with killing for over a decade. James had killed 12 people and 70 others were injured, 58 of them from gunfire. It was the worst mass shooting since the Columbine shooting in 1999. It was later surpassed in 2016 at the Orlando nightclub shooting, which was then surpassed by the Las Vegas shooting in 2017. Holmes received 12 life sentences without the possibility of parole for the murder charges, and an additional 3,318 years for the attempted murder and explosive possession charges. In imposing the sentence, the judge stated for the record that it was the intention of the court that the defendant never set foot in free society again, and added that the defendant deserves no sympathy. Many of the people killed were young and in their 20s, excited, looking to have a good time. This is one of the more horrific tragedies on this list. Something that may be just as horrific is the loss of a child. Zack Snyder, director of Watchmen, Man of Steel, and Batman vs. Superman, suffered a personal tragedy while filming Justice League. Adam Snyder, one of his 8 children, committed suicide on March 12, 2017. She was adopted from China by Zack and his wife when she was very young. She completed her basic education in California. Later, she was enrolled at Sarah Lawrence College. In 2014, Autumn started a philanthropy tagged Write-a-thon charity in a bid to help homeless mothers and their children. She further created a crowd-raise page to champion this cause. She was also putting up a sci-fi novel which she was hoping to launch before she died. Zack tried to work on Justice League for 3 months after this incident. He tried to lose himself in his work, but ultimately had to step down. Joss Whedon stepped in to finish the film. The final product was a tonal mess and was the lowest-grossing DC movie to date. The reshoots required needed Henry Cavill to reduce some scenes, but he was in a contract for the new Mission Impossible movie, so they had to digitally remove his mustache he legally had to keep. Some rumors surfaced that Snyder was actually fired, wasn't reported on given the circumstances. Henry Cavill was later fired as Superman, and Ben Affleck had to step down from playing Batman due to alcohol abuse.